This is Rig Recon Live, episode 2. I'm Bruce Quick alongside Jason Whitmire, and we're going to be your co hosts for today's episode of Rig Recon Live. We got an exciting one. We're talking about the hot industry topic of scene lighting on apparatus and scene lighting in the fire industry. Jason, I know this is one that you are definitely passionate about. I've heard you talk about it for a long time and you get down to the weeds about it. So I think our listeners are going to have a lot of good nuggets to break down from here. I know that when they've taken your webinars and your classes you taught on this, that they feel so overloaded, but they do learn that one thing that they can take with them that changes their whole perspective on scene lighting. And I think you're very good at that. We're going to talk about scene lighting. We're going to break down what you should look for. We're going to talk about the terminology, the technology, and we're going to even talk a little bit about FRC and how they play a role in the lighting market. How do we compare this to the regular person? We go to Lowe's or any home department store, and in the past, we bought a light bulb and it's 100 watts, right? And today we go to the same hardware store and we buy the same light bulb, and it's lumens that are comparable to the watts. So, what are lumens? What is this terminology, and why is it important to know?
When you went back in history and we had halogen lighting, especially on fire trucks, it was easy to compare halogen lighting, two lights to each other by their wattage. Wattage is a measurement of power. So how much power do I use? Obviously, with a halogen light, the way it worked, the more power I used, the brighter the light was. If one person was advertising 1,000 watt light and then they came out with a 1,500 watt light, you knew that light was brighter than the 1,000 watt.
Hmm.
Your halogen light had a lumen output. It's just there was no need to talk about it. So no one ever really talked about the lumens.
Right.
Now, when you get into the LED world, you can't compare power. Same LED with the same output could be drawing different power if it's not being used efficiently, if it's
Hmm.
starting to fail. So we can't just say I've got a 100 watt LED and a 150 watt LED. The 150 watt LED might not be brighter necessarily. So
Right.
now we need to specifically talk about lumens, which is a measurement of the light that's physically coming out of that LED.
Hmm. Exactly. And so then also we'll shift to some more terminology we see on websites, or we see a lot of people show them are like the ground plots, so where the light hits the ground, and it's referred to as the lux. So break down the lux and what is the lux?
So while lumens are a measurement of the light that's coming out of the bulb, lux is a measurement of the light that's specifically hitting the ground. But what you need to keep in mind with lux, it's specifically what it's hitting the ground at a certain point over a certain distance.
Hmm.
So when you think about lux, think about a flashlight. Think about the newer flashlights you can buy that you see on TV where you have a slider on it. And you can have a pinpoint, really focused beam out in the distance, or you could pull it back and get more of a flood beam. The output of that light isn't changing. So the lumens of the light are the same, but the measurement at the ground when I'm in a spot pattern versus a flood pattern is going to change. So that's where lux comes into play. Ground plots are cool. They look really neat. What I'll say about ground plots, we use ground plots for some of our product. We have to. We need to show you how wide is your pattern? How far out does your pattern go? But when you look at that ground plot and you see a bright white spot right in the middle, and then it's light green, and then it's dark green, do you really have a feel for the difference between what that bright white and that dark green mean? It's very hard to say. So while it's something cool that you can use to look at a measurement on the ground and see how wide your pattern is, I certainly wouldn't go by lux alone to evaluate a light.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that brings up a great point. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of distraction in the lighting industry about what is actually good for you and what isn't, and maybe even some deception when it comes to the terminology and how it's marketed or presented to the customer. Which brings up, I know, one of the hottest topics in the lighting industry right now. So we got the raw versus effective lumens, which the raw lumens can make for some flashy lights, right? Some great advertising, some big numbers that are very eye popping. But what really tells the true story, and where I think FRC does a great job, right? For example, is talking about the effective lumens of the light. So why don't we break down that?
It's a great topic. It's something that was important. I'm glad you brought it up. The effective lumens, they're what really matters. So let's talk about raw first. Lumens are simply the measurement of what each bulb can do. I have an LED bulb and it can do 100 lumen output. And now I throw 10 of them on a board. I've got 1,000 lumen raw light. It's just 10 times 100. The problem is with most of these LEDs, there's a lot you need to do to it. You can't just power it up to full 12-volt power or 110 power, whatever you're using for that specific light, and let it burn hot the whole time. You'll burn the LED out. To measure the temperature and monitor it, that takes away some light at times, depending on the different brands. The other thing is, as that light passes through a lens, you have some loss there. So we engineer these lights to do certain losses that are just natural, that are going to come into play to get to our effective output. My best analogy for raw versus effective, go back to your first job out of high school. Maybe you got really lucky and you landed a job that was paying you $10 an hour. Now, I know today, Bruce, for you being newer in the industry, you'd be like, $10 an hour, I'm not working for that. That's way too low. For the older guys in the industry, they're going $10 an hour and out of high school, you're dreaming. So you got that job. It was $10 an hour. You worked 20 hours that first week, all excited Friday because you could do math, and 20 times 10 was 200. You had a paycheck coming for $200 and it was about $130. And you were like, what happened? That's raw versus effective. What you're getting paid on paper. Effective lumens is the take home. So after Uncle Sam took his chunk out, well, after nature and science and some efficiency factors came into play, you get your effective lumens. Now, what really makes FRC different in the industry is through our engineering and our technology and what we've done, we only have an industry leading 10% loss on an overwhelming majority of our lights. A couple lights are different because you may have different lens thickness, but for a majority of our lights, we suffer only 10% loss, which means our raw lumens, if they're 100, our effective lumens are going to be 90% of that. For the rest of the industry, most of them lose anywhere from 30 to 45% of their light when they go from raw to effective. What does that mean in layman's terms? I buy a 10,000 lumen light. I expect that it's going to put 10,000 lumens out. If I'm using an FRC, I've only got 10% loss. So when I get out there to the scene, I'm going to have 9,000 lumens actually hitting the ground doing their job. Competitor, I'm going to have anywhere from 6,000 to maybe 7,500 because of the losses.
So why, I guess the question could be, why don't we just lead with the effective lumens? What is so powerful about a lot of these places are leading with the raw lumens and maybe causing a little bit of confusion?
A lot of times it's hard to measure those effective lumens. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can do testing. You can go into a lab. And then even when you get into that lab setting, it becomes a debate on exactly where you measure it and how you measure it. There's a lot of arguments over, are you telling the whole story? And you could trick people a lot by doing different things with your effective.
Sure.
We sell based on raw. Almost everybody, actually everybody sells based on raw. Most people list both their raw and their effective. So what we really need the end user to do is not just say, oh, Jason and Bruce said that you got to buy FRC because they only lose 10%. Not at all. What we're telling you to do is check the facts. The website, go to our website, go to our competitor's website, look at their data sheet. They'll tell you, or most of them will tell you, raw and effective. They're in print and they're facts at that point. That's what we want you to see.
And you just hit on it, but I was going to bring up, all right, now we look at a light, say we have 10,000 raw lumens, and with FRC, we're only going to get 10% loss, so you're going to get 9,000 effective lumens, correct? All right, do we just purchase scene lighting based off of that? Or what kind of else goes into the whole raw versus effective theme here?
So what's really cool with LED lighting and what really advanced the industry with LED is the lens technology. We were able to put a lot of engineering into the lens to do different things. When we teach our webinar, we teach all the different things that go into lighting, but the title of it, or the first slide, is all about effective lighting. And it's funny because We just spent 5 minutes talking about raw versus effective.
Right.
This isn't effective in the term of the lumen output, but what's most effective for you on scene?
Hmm.
It used to be you get a really bright light, you put it up as high as you can, you turn it on, and you light up as much as you can.
Right.
Not today with lens technology. You need to determine ahead of time, what do I want to do with the light? Do I specifically want to light up an area right at the base of the rig? Do I want to light up an area way out in the distance down the street? That's where the lens technology really comes into play. That also is what affects your raw versus your effective output, is those
Hmm.
different types of lenses. Right. There's basically two technologies at play when
Hmm.
you get into how to bend the light. The first one is reflection. So it's very simple. Your LED is blasting light out in all directions. Another good example, when I teach the class, I talk about the Amazon light.
Hmm.
So a lot of times in the fire service, people go, why do I pay so much for your light on a fire truck when I could buy one off of Amazon for a third of the cost that does the same output?
Right.
What I usually tell them is, first of all, when you buy that Amazon light, check the warranty, because we've got a lifetime warranty and some of our competitors have lifetime warranties. You're not going to get that lifetime warranty. And then the comeback is, well, okay, but it's a third of the price. So even if it breaks in 5 years and I have to get another one, I'm still only 2/3 of the cost of your light. And part of this is what goes into that light. Take that Amazon light that's inexpensive. Look
Mhm.
at the lumen output. Put it on your rig or hold it up in the air. Don't install it on your rig. Hold it up in the air and look at it. What you're going to notice is on a lot of those lights, you're going to have really bright light as you're looking at it. But now stand behind it and look out into the distance. You're going to get a bunch of bright light right on the ground in front of you. 10 feet down the street, you're not going to have any light.
Right.
And you're not going to have concentrated light because there's no lens in there. There's a lens over it, which is protecting the LED from being smashed, but there's no actual focusing through that lens. So
Right.
one focus is reflection. You'll
Mhm.
see a fancy mirror inside or a really highly reflective surface. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to take that light that's coming out of that LED in all directions and bounce it around to get it into a specific spot on the scene. It works. The
Mhm.
FRC halogen lights were called the Focus series. They had a mirror or a reflective surface inside of them. We use that technology. It works, but it has more loss. When I reflect light, I inherently lose a lot more. That's where you see these lights that only put out 70% of what they've advertised because the reflection loses it.
Right.
The better way to do it is refraction. Now, refraction takes a lot more engineering. It's going to cost more money because it's a custom lens. It's a lens that is quite often patented and it's going to do a specific purpose. So by using refraction, we take little pieces of the lens that look like fish eyes,
Mhm.
and that's taking the light and directing it out into the distance to a specific focal point.
Right.
Then we take a parabolic lens that almost looks like the LED is stretched. That parabolic lens is casting a whole bunch of light down to the ground directly.
Mhm.
The key is you want a lens that's going to give you light even across a whole surface.
Mhm. So lighting terminology, when I'm evaluating lighting, we got lumens, lux, raw versus effective, light bend. The next fancy vocabulary term, heat dissipation. Tell me, what is heat dissipation?
So let's go back to our Amazon light.
Mhm.
And I'm not picking on Amazon, but I don't think they're going to call us and get mad at us anyhow. So let's
Exactly.
go back to that inexpensive light. When they turn that LED on, it's very bright. They will have those types of lights will monitor the temperature on the board. Just about all lighting manufacturers monitor the temperature on the board.
Mhm.
As the temperature goes up, heat is the enemy of an LED. If I let that temperature get really high, I'm going to burn that LED out. So what'll happen is that light, as it heats up, they'll start to decrease the output. The way that you don't burn it up is turn it down a little bit. So think about a dimmer in your house.
Mhm.
If the light's on really bright, you turn that dimmer a little bit and you dim it down. That's what they're doing with these LEDs.
Mhm.
Now, to most people, you're not standing in front of the light for 3, 4 hours.
Right.
And if you are in front of it that whole time, your eye adjusts as it dims down. So you don't really notice it because it's not a really uh, quick change where all of a sudden it was bright and now it's dim.
Right.
What we want to do is we want to keep that light lit up the whole time. So when you hear us quote our output, that is the output when that light is heated up to 185 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
We could be a little bit brighter when we're cooler, but we're going to give you the actual rating at 185 degrees Fahrenheit because that's the hottest we're ever going to let that light get because we're going to shed heat with our heat sinks. There's two things that come into play in heat dissipation. One is the circuit board. We use metal circuit boards so that you can get the heat off of the LED through the circuit board to the back of the light. On the back of the light, you have a heat sink, which looks like a bunch of metal fins sticking up off of the back of the light. Those are designed to shed that heat so that as air moves over them, the heat will be carried off the light and we continue to burn it bright and not overheat it.
All right. So I know all the terminology now. I'm doing a lot of research. I'm looking into it and I'm getting ready to spec a new apparatus. So, Jason, in your words, and it's quite general, what do I need to take into account when I'm specing a new apparatus when it comes to sea lighting, and why is it so important? Why can't I just pick any random lights? They're all bright, right?
They're all bright. Absolutely. There's a couple things you want to look at. One is you want a consistent pattern. So you want to see the lights you're going to spec lit up, preferably in your own response area. But even if you're looking at just drone footage of it, you want to take a look at that light. Does it have hot spots where it's really bright white here and then cold spots somewhere else? Or is it a uniform pattern that's giving you good lighting all across the scene? Hot spots are bad because they become blinding. Dark spots are obviously bad because they're dark. You can't
Right.
see. But the other thing you really want to consider when you're specing your light is what is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? So a great light that I'll give you an example of is on the side of the rig. A lot of people put a very small light between the front and the rear cab door. Whole
Mhm.
goal of that light is when I open the cab door, that light comes on automatically. Now the question is, what do I want to do with that light? Do I want it to light up across the street and light the house up? I want to light the ground up right below the doors where my guys are getting out.
Mhm.
There's no right or wrong answer here. You may have great ground lighting on your rig and say, no, I really want that light to light up the house. Then buy the light that does that. In the
Right.
FRC world, that's our Spectra 900. It's specifically designed to get light out into the distance and not as much to the ground.
Mhm.
Next customer may say, no, I really want that light to light up really bright on the ground right at my feet where I'm getting out. That's our Spectra 950, specifically designed to do that application. That may come into play on the back of a rig as well. 9 times out of 10, why do I have a light on the back of the body? Well, it's for backing up so I can see when I'm backing up. The easy answer is, well, I want both, Jay. I want to see down the street and I want to see right behind the tailboard.
Right.
Okay, put a 900 on one side, put a 950 on the other side. Now you got the
Mhm.
best of both worlds. The
Right.
key is just to define what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And then once you've defined it, find the right light that works for your application. Take into consideration things like raw versus effective. So when I buy a 20,000 lumen light, am I getting 18,000 lumens on the ground or am I getting 13,000 lumens on the ground? Because that's the difference you're going to find between the competitors. What do I really want to get out of it? And then are they going to stand behind it? What's the warranty? A lot of them are
Right.
lifetime, but not all of them.
And I think the great thing is, and not to plug the own horn, right? But again, rigrecon.com, one of the topics, scene lighting. We have a breakdown of all the various different types of scene lights that FRC offers. We clearly state what the effective lumens are, and we even give you the competitor comparison so you can do your own homework and do your own research. And then we have a product guide that talks about the terminology that we've gone over. We have a technical guide section that is going to show drone videos like we've referenced throughout this podcast. It's going to show you episodes that break down the technology and use video and animation to show you actually what's happening behind the scene lighting. And then also, we do have a lighting webinar posted on there. So if you want to go even more in depth into what scene lighting is, it's again, Jason is teaching it. You can watch the lighting webinar. And then we have product overviews. And speaking of FRC products and lighting products, because we're on it, as you can see behind me, I have a Radiant Eco, a Spectre Mobile, and a Lens. Jason, walk me through FRC's scene lighting product line and some of the heavy hitters and the ones that you're going to want to spec on your new apparatus.
The newest stuff coming out, everybody unfortunately knows that in today's atmosphere and in today's market, you go and order a rig today, you're not getting it for 3 years.
Right.
So technology has changed. And our newest product that you're really going to want to look at is our Radiant line. Our
Hmm.
Radiant Eco is our starting line where we come in with the best price point, 15,000 lumens of output, only 10% loss, and a lot of variety of where you can mount that light. Can go on a tripod, it can go on a telescoping pole, it can mount fixed. Surface mount
Right.
lighting is very popular. That's our Radiant Lux series, 22,000 lumens of raw output, and again, only 10% loss. And then the big boy in the market is our Radiant Max. And our Radiant Max, the way we built the Max, some people want all the light on all the time. That's simple. If you want that, you spec a Max with an on-off switch. Some people say, I don't want to blind everyone all the time. So maybe sometimes I want the spot on. Maybe sometimes I want the flood on. You can buy that Radiant Max with 2 on-off switches, one to control spot, one to control flood. And you're fully capable and fine to turn them both on if you want them. It doesn't
Right.
draw off of the other one. So it's not like it derates when you turn the whole thing on.
All right. We covered scene lighting, specking a new apparatus. Jason, I have a current apparatus. I want to go from halogen to LED, or maybe I just want to upgrade my LED lights because, right, we talked about it. It takes a long time now to get a fire truck. So these fire trucks are staying in service longer than they ever have before. And one of the easiest ways to upgrade your truck and to keep it healthy and long living is scene lighting. I know FRC offers a few programs. Why don't you break those down for us?
If you're going from an existing FRC light, so you have one of our old Focus, one of our old Optimum, it's really simple. We have a website. We have several dealers that go out and do this. The key is just get the serial number off the lights you have. If you get the
Mhm.
serial numbers off the lights you have, you are literally going to take 4 screws out to unmount the light. You're going to cut 3 wires. You're going to hook the new 3 wires up. You're going to install the new light head. You're never going to have to do body work. You're never going to have to do paint because the new head will either cover the old head or it will come with an escutcheon plate that covers anything that was left over.
Mhm.
Worst case scenario, you may have to drill some new holes, but you'd be covering the old holes up. If you
Right.
got something like a brow mount, we make a universal bracket that'll adapt to all the brow mounts that we've ever done.
Mhm.
Now, the catch becomes, what if I don't have an old FRC light? What if I have one of the competitors' old lights and I want to replace that? Still be done, just might take a little more work. So at that
Sure.
point, you may need a dealer to come out and look at it and quote it to.
Mhm. Biggest mistake you've seen when specking or purchasing scene lighting?
Just getting caught up in all of the different social media out there and, oh, I've got to have this because someone said it's the greatest thing. Look at the facts. Don't
Mhm.
just go off that raw number. So often people see that raw number and they're like, wow, that is the brightest light in the industry. First of all, where
Right.
was it measured? And second of all, what's the purpose of it? Look at the effective output. That is what really is going to matter. And that's what you're going to see in our comparison videos. You're going to see 2 lights next to each other that have the same raw rating. And when you look at them, you're going to go, there's no way these are equivalent. They're
Right.
not. But you got to do your homework and learn.
Right.
Uh, the other thing will be over specking. There is a thing is too much. Like, you don't want to blind people. I can personally say from my own experience that I've been on scenes where an incoming rig was coming at me and said, turn your brow light off. You're blinding us. So you definitely have to look at that. There is such a thing as too much.
Right. Biggest mistake? All right. Top 3. We learned a lot. Spoke a lot of vocabulary, a lot of different examples. Give me your top 3 things that people need to take away from listening to this or watching this podcast today?
Top three things to take away would be effective output. So raw versus effective. Warranty. I think warranty is critical because we're keeping these rigs in service for a very long time. And not only is it covered by a lifetime warranty, but does that lifetime warranty have catches in it? Is it a full unlimited lifetime warranty? What's the replacement policy? We call it at FRC our no hole guarantee.
Mhm.
So we don't want a rig driving around with a hole in the side of it because you had to pull the light out, send it back to us to evaluate and or repair. We will, for the life of that rig, you have a problem with that light, we'll send you a new head. You receive the new head, install it, pull the old head off, send it back to us. So you want to look at that policy. And then the third thing is just really understanding what your goal is, what the purpose is of that light, and picking the light that fits your purpose.
Gotcha. So we've covered terminology. We've covered how to evaluate when speccing a new apparatus. We've talked about the FRC scene lighting product lines. We've talked about the lens technology. And we've talked about some big mistakes that people make and maybe the top three things you can take away from it. Jason, as the proclaimed master of scene lighting, anything else that we need to hit on or cover today when we're talking about scene?
The only thing I'd say wrapping up is there's a contact us part on your website.
Mhm.
The best way to evaluate scene lighting is in your backyard where your fire truck responds, taking maybe an old truck that has lighting on it and holding the new light up next to it. Every one of our regionals, we cover the entire nation. Every one of our regionals has all of our lighting products. They're more than happy to schedule a demo with you, come out and do it live. That's the best way to evaluate. And if,
100%.
and if you want our competition to come out the same night, we're more than happy to do it.
Yeah, nothing more powerful than the side by side, right? You can see the difference. This has been another episode of Rig Recon Live, episode 2. We talked about scene lighting, and we look forward to talking with you at episode 3. Spec the best.